Well, hello. It is so nice to see all of you back in the building. In some of the cheap seats back there and some of the very expensive seats at the front. It's so nice. And we could hear you down the corridor all chit-chatting and getting to know each other again. So that was really nice. So let's hope that's how the meeting stays. Hey,
absolutely.
Right, we're going to move straight on because there's a lot to get through at this annual meeting. We're going to start off with apologies. So, Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have apologies from Councillors Cooper, Herringy, Markham, Radia, Riley, Seaman-Digby and Stead.
Thank you. Do we have, agenda item 2, do we have any declarations of interest for this meeting? No, okay, so we shall move straight on to agenda item 3, the election of Mayor for 2021-22. And I will start with my summary of my year. This was the first speech that I have actually struggled with writing and have written half a dozen drafts. It has been difficult to decide what to add and what to leave out, as everything I did during my year was so meaningful and important. I was just going to say that the summary of my year is on my YouTube channel. So let's go to the next agenda item. But I thought, however, I'd best not. It was an unusual time for all, as we have had to adapt and accept that each day would bring further distressing news, and someone somewhere was not in a good place. I had inherited an empty diary and things were looking bleak. So at the beginning of my term, I found myself sitting at my desk in the parlour, sifting through my emails and being amazed at all the outstanding stories I was receiving, informing me of the many wonderful things that were being done in our borough by our residents. And I realised I had the opportunity to engage with them, making sure they knew that their amazing work for others would not go unnoticed during a global pandemic. Such as children like Karshni, who hula hooped to raise money for other children less fortunate than her, Samuel Clayton, who wanted to thank the NHS, Paul Field, who walked around his green 100 times, and Gracie, who made her own scrubs for people. There were also adults, such as Mr. Rajinder Singh, the Skipping Sikh, volunteers such as Donna and her team at the Bell Farm Christian Centre, who planned activities for residents to keep them feeling less depressed and less isolated. Laura from Hillingdon for All, making calls to residents so that they had one person every day to talk to. Catherine, who set up the patient care packs, and Nirav, who's got their telephone switched on. Thank you. And Nirav, who repaired old laptops to give to home-schooled children. Plus our guides and Scout Association volunteer leaders, who continuously kept so many children occupied from the first lockdown. I got to get to know them online and in person and was astounded at how determined they were to make helping others their key cause in life during the pandemic. Each moment in their company was truly amazing and uplifting, and the more I spoke to these residents, the more I loved my role as mayor. I've also been amazed at how business owners have reinvented themselves over and over to cater for their customers with all the restrictions they have had to follow. Opening up after closing on and off all year round and doing it with bundles of enthusiasm as their business is their passion and livelihood. Inviting me to reopen their shops like Thames Hospice in Uxbridge, the Textile Recycling Company in Northwood Hills, and various beauty parlours. It has been so impressive how new business owners decided in lockdowns to get premises and start a new business, such as Lasher Moore in West Drayton, Give Space in Hillingdon, and PKB Therapy in Hayes. Meeting all of these people and listening to their plans and optimism has been a complete delight and beyond motivational. They all saw an opportunity during a difficult time and decided to take it, even though they knew it could be challenging. And I take my hat off to them. As I'm going to be honest, I hit my wall around January after fracturing my toe in November, causing me to feel quite low as I could not do my regular yoga and spinning exercises, and I couldn't wear my heels. I also had yet another empty diary for another lockdown. When I did get the chance to go back to do some outdoor events, the Jag conked out before an event, so we had to travel in Cameron's Fiesta. I also was very sad that there was no option to host any large gatherings, social gatherings, even with the restrictions lifting here and there. But my year has been memorable, to say the least, and I've absolutely loved it. And as you know by now, we set up the first ever YouTube channel for the Mayor. And if you don't, where have you been? Obviously, I wanted to keep it fairly formal. However, Cameron had other ideas. Mayor of Hillingdon 2020, with Cameron's enthusiasm, knowledge and experience, was born. It was supposed to be light-hearted, fun, and a little cheeky way to showcase, inform and celebrate the borough through my engagements, and as you heard, I had lots of brilliant stories to tell, and they deserved to be aired. The idea of weekly updates gave way to further videos, such as the bowl session, wreath laying during Remembrance, the Borough Christmas lights, and the citizenship ceremony. We have had the chance to video in the lounge, the kitchen, the garden, civic parlour and balcony. Yes, I do have a glitter wall, the cat's called Solo, and thank you to the person that said my grass needed a cut. It has been really amazing experience becoming a YouTuber, and an even more daunting experience realising that the updates were being watched by so many. The wonderful thing was that we never needed to beg anyone to be on the update, apart from Chris and Colin on the Christmas jumper video, but otherwise people would easily agree to us taking their story and retelling it on the weekly vlog. This in itself started a process where others found out about things and connected with people they heard about on the channel. The channel now has 208 subscribers, 715 hours of watch time, 19,500 views, 145,000 impressions. 12% of our viewers are from the United States. 61% of our audience is female. 39% of our audience is between 35 and 44 years old. And 28% of our audience is between 24 and 34 years old. The top 3 videos are the citizenship, which has got 12,800 views. And the weekly updates, which we still can't fathom out why these particular 2, but on the 29th of January we had nearly 370 views. On the 5th of February we had 400 views. It's been a blast. Hard work, but a blast. And I am so pleased to see that we got the chance to do what we set out to do, which was showcase the brilliant residents of Hillingdon. So, Councillor Chamdal, I formally pass my Mayor of Hillingdon 2020 YouTube channel to you. Good luck, and I look forward to next Friday's offering. So while on statistics, I have completed 442 events during my term. 236 were virtually and 206 face-to-face. I had had the opportunity to meet so many amazing people along the way and hear about their lives, and I have made some wonderful friends who I am now going to embarrass by naming and shaming them. The pandemic had made us all reinvent ourselves, and through it, many of us grew and learned. I'd like to say a thank you to Shirley, and Rosemary, Penny, Rebecca, Andrew, and Leslie. So on to my charity, the Centre for ADHD and Autism Support. As you can imagine, raising money during the COVID year has been difficult for so many charities. I want to thank everyone who has donated to my chosen charity. It is very much appreciated. The amount that was raised by everybody's donations came to just over £5,000. I'm also grateful that the COVID year created some good news, such as our officers working from home and not being able to travel to work or to sites for work. This new pattern of working caused a surplus of expenses that were not claimed, so they were put towards a good cause, the Centre for ADHD and Autism Support. Which means, Lynn and Teresa, so turn your volume up, the amount saved by that came to £50,000, totalling £55,000 in all. So congratulations and thank you so much to Hillingdon Council for that donation. Thank you. And finally, as Councillor Edwards said to me earlier this year, well, Teji, you will always be remembered as the COVID Mayor. Not quite sure if that was a compliment or not. But if my title will be the COVID Mayor, then I shall take that and run with it and leave this to be someone else's dream. Thank you. So just before we go on to the next item, I want to say a very, very special thank you to Colin, our mace bearer who's there in the corner, because this is his last working day as he is about to retire. Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you. So now we're going to go to item 2, and I'm going to call upon the nominations for the new mayor. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It gives me great pleasure this evening to propose the nomination of Councillor Roy Chamdal as the next Mayor of Hillingdon. Originally from the East End of London, Roy and his wife Rita moved to Hillingdon over 30 years ago and have made it their home. A proud father of 4 children and now 1 grandson. Councillor Chamdal has been a representative of this borough since 2014 when he was elected to Brunel Ward, and I'm pleased to have been able to work alongside him as a ward colleague since then. Prior to joining the council, Roy has always been involved in his local community, having been a school governor at both primary and secondary schools, with key contributions into finance and also special educational needs. His community work goes far beyond this though. He has helped to set up a health centre near his home village in India, providing much required services and facilities for those unable to travel to the nearest big town. More closer to home, he assisted his local temple, where I know he is widely respected, and this enthusiasm and commitment to helping communities will continue during his time as mayor. His chosen charities will also benefit from all of the positive attention he will bring them during the year. I'm confident that Roy will make an outstanding mayor. His personable and friendly approach and nature has made him a popular member of this council across both sides of the chamber. Having been a long-time member of the Central and South Planning Committee, along with Chairman of Licensing, he is known for his fair and even-handed approach, as well as making careful and considered decisions, and I'm sure that will bode him well in chairing council meetings. In his professional life, his career has seen him progress within the catering industry, starting at a young age manufacturing samosas and Indian sweets, before progressing onto bread production, where he became responsible for a number of factories. The hours that he put into those jobs shows the commitment he has to the things that matter to him. Now, many of you will know that this career has taken Roy into cake production. Though ahead of his fitting of the mayoral robes, he's had to step back from his de facto position as head of testing. In the spare time that he does have, he's an avid cricket fan, and I've had the pleasure of attending matches with him, which is always a fun day out, especially once he introduces you to his special Punjabi water. He's managed to somehow attend training days with the England team and even join him catching practice with the England captain, and I'm sure that similar opportunities will come his way as first citizen of our borough. Madam Mayor, I'm sure that during his year as your deputy, Councillor Chamdal has learnt plenty from you to prepare himself for the year ahead. Linking this back to his professional and political passions, his mayoral position is oven-baked, ready to go. Roy, I wish you and Reach all the best for the year ahead. I'm sure that you'll do great. You have our support, and most of all, make sure you enjoy it. Madam Mayor, I propose Councillor Roy Chamdal to be the next Mayor of Hillingdon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Madam Mayor, it's a privilege and an honour to second Councillor Chamdal's nomination to join the roster of mayors of Hillingdon tonight. Many of us on the Conservative benches first became familiar with Councillor Chamdal as the Lib Dems' Big Roy. But it was my personal pleasure and the pleasure of all of us as colleagues to welcome him to the Conservative family, and since those days, he and Rita, who's been at his side throughout all of this time, have been very active on the campaign trail and showing their enormous sense of commitment to the local community. Roy's training at cricket in the hands of Joe Root, I know, is something which all of us are hoping to see tested and demonstrated during his mayoral year. And I'm also conscious that one of the things which he doesn't make a song and dance about is the enormous work he does as a community food project, supported by his family, that has delivered many thousands of meals to people in need in this country, as well as the work at the Charity Centre in India, referred to by Councillor Mills. So in summary, he is a man who's demonstrated a huge and genuine commitment to public service during his time as a councillor in Hillingdon in so many different ways. But what he also brings to the role of mayor, and what I'm sure he and Rita will be demonstrating very much in the forthcoming year, is an enormous generosity of spirit, both in his work directly as a councillor and in all the wider work that he does for so many different communities in this borough and across London. And that generosity of spirit, as has been mentioned, is often reflected in the delivery of quite exceptionally nice cakes to the Conservative group office and to anybody who he thinks needs a bit of a morale boost. But Councillor Chamdal is not merely Hillingdon's answer to Mr. Kipling. He is somebody who will, I'm sure, be an incredibly worthy successor to Councillor Barnes. And as we move from what has been a mayoral year, which we all recognise has been a very different one, to a situation where we'll be able to see our mayor able to go out and visit the schools, see the community, I'm sure Councillor Chamdal, in a different way, will be an exceptional ambassador for this council, and it's my absolute pleasure to second his nomination as mayor tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Okay, we shall go to the vote. I'd like to see a show of hands, please, to agree that we nominate Councillor Roy Chamdal as Mayor for 2021 and 22. I see a show of hands agreeing to that. Thank you. Is there anyone that is against that? Thank you. So I declare that Councillor Roy Chamdal will be the Mayor for 2021-22. Lloyd, go and bang it. Okay, so that's meeting adjourned.
Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to announce that that concludes the appointment of Councillor Roy Chamdal to the position of Mayor of the London Borough of Hillingdon for the forthcoming municipal year 2021-2022. Congratulations.
Good evening, everybody. We move on straight into the business end of it now. We go into the appointment of a deputy mayor. I have that. I will be appointing Councillor Becky Haggard. Where is she? I can't see her. There she is. Now's the fun part, my little speech. Well, first of all, let me say a big thank you to Councillors Richard Mills and Councillor David Simmons MP for their very, very kind but true words. Obviously, the cakes have worked. In addition, I'd like to thank all the councillors for giving me this opportunity to represent this fantastic borough. And I will do my utmost best to fulfil the role with dignity, respect, and above all, honour. Having spoken to the past mayors, it's difficult to actually focus on everybody over there. Having spoken to past mayors, they've said it's a great life experience and to enjoy every moment. And it really hit home to me what this role encompasses, and I'm extremely humble and proud now to be the first citizen of Hillingdon. And if Mum and Dad were here now, they would say the boy's done good. Councillor Barnes, thank you very much. You had a very, very difficult, if not impossible year for the role of the mayor. You handled it absolutely brilliantly. And a big thank you from me. You supported me a lot for that. Another big thank you is to Lloyd. He's not expecting it. And his team for facilitating for us to come back to this fantastic chamber to joust, not today, but joust and debate matters that we all find close to our heart. But one thing that we always do is we put our residents first. We might have difference of opinions, but as long as we're presenting a gentlemanly way, I believe it will benefit the community as a whole. I'm not one for long speeches, so I've sort of limited it down for roughly about 2.5 minutes. I'm first of all delighted to announce that my wife Rita has agreed, finally, to be the mayoress. She's extremely organised, very hard-working, and extremely thorough. You know, you've got to have the right colour socks on, they have to match the trousers. No, she's very good, and she's going to support me ably, and she'll be an asset to the mayoral team. For my escort, I was extremely surprised when my daughter agreed. Where is she? Evangeline. She's great on the technical part, a bit like Cameron. I mean, I can't make heads and tails of things. She helps me a lot. So she's kindly volunteered to be my escort, and I believe it'd be a big step for her and for me. Spend some time together. I want to thank all my guests who've turned up today from afar and near, and also want to say, which camera, a big thank you to everybody who's listening in India. It's about 12:30. And people in America, it's in the afternoon. So hello, I'm not supposed to name you, so I'm not going to. The one thing the past year has shown us is that we need communities. The pandemic has not discriminated in its victims at all, whether it's person or whether it's even business. And the strength of our communities has shown us that we help each other regardless of race, faith, belief. Whether you're overweight like me, no. We have to act as one. My charities. I wanted to look outside the box, giving an opportunity to a charity which reflect the community. I remember when we first came to this country, I think it was mentioned by Councillor Mills that us making samosas 4 o'clock, we used to wake up about 4 o'clock in the morning at the weekends. And that hard work ethos that mum and dad instilled with us, you know, as teenagers, was absolutely essential for us when we grew up. The conversations that we used to have as a family, we used to have arguments, because you'd be making it for a good 4 or 5 hours. We'll have arguments, we'll have discussions, but it was really good quality time, because you could discuss whatever you want. So moving on to charity, the first one is, it's called Domestic Abuse Survivors. This is a non-profit organisation fronted by a young lady called Vicky Wheaton. Where's Vicky? Hi, Vicky. She herself has been a victim of domestic abuse. She set up this charity to help and support others in their long journey to recovery and hope, to enable victims not to be victims. She's extremely dedicated, hugely passionate to help young people, especially living in social care, reaching out to them and building lasting relationships. This is absolutely essential. Because the amount of abusers are actually abused themselves. And it's to break that horrible cycle that she's taken a novel approach to it. And Vicky would always also ask me to encourage more male survivors to come forward and seek support. The second charity reminded me of a story when I was a councillor, a school governor. And there was a breakfast club we used to have where children who weren't able to interact with others. So they would call them in early in the morning, 4 or 5 of them, sit down and have breakfast together. And it was fantastic watching these kids all of a sudden starting talking to each other, talking about what they did last night, watching TV. And there was a little lad, I still remember it, he had 2 shredded wheats. 6-year-old child had 2 shredded wheats and a bit of toast. And near the end of the breakfast session, he said, "Could I have another shredded wheat?" So afterwards in our wash-up, I said, that young lad had a really good appetite. He's a bit like me. And the teacher said, "Actually, no, Roy, you're missing the point. He hasn't had dinner, and he hasn't had breakfast." And that was, whoa. So the second charity I've chosen is called Navrati Garba. It's a local charity based in Hillingdon, who for the past year has been providing food to vulnerable, lonely, homeless, and those who can't afford to buy on a regular basis, healthy food. And having a chat with a counsellor recently, she told me how easy it's to fall onto the breadline. Having both herself and her partner working, then not working, and then going on the breadline. Wow. So it's extremely essential that we have these. The charity is run by Mr. Jaswant Maicham. Where's Jaswant Bhai? Hello, Jaswant. And his aim is to support a wider community and bring about cohesive with the diverse groups that make up the community. He's distributed goods amongst the NHS, as most people have. The charity's actually done to a vaccination hub as well. I'm going to finish up here now, before everybody falls asleep. But my final message is, and I urge everybody, both here, abroad, I know you're listening and watching, is to take up the vaccine. When it's been offered, take it up. It's absolutely essential. I myself have had both doses. I'm still here. It's okay for all communities. It's no animal fats, no nothing. The Mayoress has had 1 dose, and she's just awaiting the second one, so that should be imminent. So once again, please go around the communities, ensure everybody knows it's safe, and we follow suit. Thank you. So we now go to agenda item 7. It's vote of thanks to outgoing Mayor. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It is indeed a great privilege to move a vote of thanks to Councillor Teji Barnes for her service to this borough and its residents as the worshipful Mayor of Hillingdon during the most challenging of years. The COVID pandemic has impacted this borough greatly, and as a consequence, Teji's mayoral activities were greatly curtailed, and it will not be lost on colleagues that the first address by Teji in the chamber in her mayoral robes has been her statement as retiring mayor. But as the saying goes, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And Teji grasped that opportunity, showing her energy, drive and innovation by the way she has discharged her duties as our first and hopefully only virtual mayor. I think that's a little softer than COVID mayor. Teji, you have maintained the dignity of the office of mayor throughout and found a new way of connecting with residents through your YouTube channel, a new practice that I suspect may well be adopted by future mayors. Your chosen charity, the Centre for ADHD and Autism Support, which is within your ward, supports, educates and empowers individuals with autism and their families. I know that Teji is passionate about their work and was pleased to have the opportunity to fundraise for them. But whilst it was fair to say that the pandemic put the brakes on your predecessor, Councillor Yarrow's fundraising at the end of his year, the brakes have been firmly left on throughout the whole of your year, preventing your fundraising exploding into life in the way that I know that you wish to do so. Despite the challenge, and being the innovative businesswoman that Teji is, she has ensured that her charity hasn't missed out by repurposing funds from the Mayor who's unable to use to support civic dinner, civic service, as well as general hospitality. And together she has raised £55,000, as she informs us, for the mayoral's charity, an exceptional achievement in these circumstances. The change in council leadership has not affected our sound financial management, and Hillingdon will once again come in significantly under budget. But when the outturn for last year is finalised, I will be pleased to be in a position to recommend to Cabinet that we top up your fundraising total so that the amount raised for the Centre for ADHD Autism Support will be £105,000. Teji, Mr. Mayor, Teji's mayoral year has been very different, but I hope, Teji, it has been personally rewarding and memorable nonetheless. And from your address, it appears that it has clearly been so. You have managed our meetings with both grace and authority, and you have represented this borough warmly and professionally. You leave behind a legacy of having opened a new way of keeping in touch with residents and have ensured through your year that schools, charities and community groups have continued to be supported by the Office of Mayor. Councillor Barnes, you've been aided by your son Cameron, daughter Roma and Eloisa throughout your mayoral year, and as a team you have been fantastic. Please, together with your family, accept our grateful thanks for a job exceedingly well done. Thank you.
Councillor Curlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the pleasure of seconding the vote of thanks to Councillor Barnes for her year as Hillingdon's first citizen. It has been a year like no other year, and it seems a great shame that your entire mayoral year has been during the pandemic. However, it is amazing just how much you have achieved and how many events you have been able to attend one way or another. I've had the pleasure of attending a few of your events, including the opening of the refurbished bandstand at Borough Hall Park, and sadly the laying of a wreath at the death of His Royal Highness Prince Philip. One positive side of the pandemic is that our whole community has pulled together and looked out for each other, and it has been great to watch your weekly YouTube videos. The double act of Madam Mayor and Cameron has been very informative as well as entertaining. The videos have really brought the mayoralty to life, and they've been absolutely great to watch, so thank you both for that. Councillor Barnes, you have also had to chair full council meetings remotely. This task is not easy at the best of times, but remotely it's doubly difficult. Despite the technical problems and one or two rebels using the chat function, you maintained order and discipline and ensured that our meetings were conducted impeccably. It is therefore with a great deal of pleasure and appreciation that I second this vote of thanks to Madam Mayor for 2020 to 2021, Councillor Teji Barnes. Thank you.
Sir Ray Paddyfoot.
Sorry, no microphone. Oh, yes, stop. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to have this opportunity to say a few words about Councillor Teji Barnes and her mayoral year. I've had the privilege of moving the vote of thanks to the outgoing worshipful mayor of this borough for the past 20 years, and as we've heard from the leader of the council, the past year has been very challenging, and without doubt, certainly the most challenging of the past 20 years, and probably longer. Being elected as the Mayor of Hillingdon during the COVID pandemic, with all its restrictions on our day-to-day activities, would be an unenviable problem for any incoming mayor. But as the great jazz musician Duke Ellington said, a problem is a chance for you to do your best. And Councillor Teji Barnes certainly did that. Councillor Barnes' mayoralty has been a real family event, with daughters Roma and Lucia carrying out the duties of mayoress, and son Cameron combining his duties as escort with that of producer, joint presenter of the Mayor's Weekly Diary on her YouTube channel, detailing the mayoral activities and visits both in person and virtually. So the thanks of all in this chamber and the residents of this borough go to the whole mayoral family. Mr. Mayor, sometimes a problem creates a pressure that brings out the real talents and abilities of an individual, and in such circumstances they're often described as a rock. However, if we take that analogy a little further, a rock under pressure can become a diamond. And Councillor Teji Barnes, without doubt, in your mayoral year, in such difficult times, you've proved to be a diamond. Well done and thank you.
Is there any other speakers? No? So is this vote of thanks agreed? Agreed. Thank you. We now move on to 7.2, a presentation of past mayors and past mayoresses. I've asked that Councillor Barnes does a presentation, which she had to delay for a year first. So, Councillor Yarrow and where's Mary? Mary O'Connor.
So can I actually, sorry, Mr. Mayor, could we have you up separately? So could I have Councillor Yarrow first, please? Thank you, Mary. If you'd like to come down.
Now to the past, Mayor. Now move on to agenda item 8. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There will be no changes in the Cabinet this year, and I ask the Council to note the appointments as published. And more importantly, to note the result of the Charleville by-election and to welcome Councillor Darren Davis to the Council and Conservative Group. Mr. Mayor, Part 3 and Part 4, 8.3 and 8.4 of the report set out changes to the Council's constitution that I believe are in residents' best interests as we prepare for next year's reduction in the number of members of the Council. Part 3 proposes amendments to the terms of reference for the Council to improve transparency and aid the understanding of residents. The amendments reflect the changes in law over the last years that have previously required Council to have certain plans and strategies that are no longer necessary. Also under Part 3 is the proposed formation of new select committees and the change of the power of call-in. The power of call-in of executive decisions is critically important to ensure good decision-making and to provide right checks and balances in the exercise of executive power. By repurposing our present policy overview select committees into the select committees with delegated power to call in decisions within their area of expertise, the need for a standalone executive scrutiny committee is dispensed with. I move the recommendation as published.
Is there a seconder?
I formally second and reserve my right, Mr. Mayor.
There we go. Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to move the amendment on the paper. Mr. Mayor, scrutiny in local government should regularly be reviewed to strengthen local democracy, and it should be regularly reviewed to strengthen the services and responsibilities of the council for local residents. And generally, we welcome these changes to improve our committees, but unfortunately, these changes prevent scrutiny at the first stage, and it's a simple amendment that will change this. The amendment I move prevents the reduction of councillors who can request a call-in. How it currently works is every councillor can request a call-in. It is then taken to executive scrutiny for the decision to be made on whether a call-in can occur. This is made on cabinet decisions either at cabinet meeting itself or those during and between meetings. How it is proposed to work is that only 28 councillors spread across 4 select committees can request a call-in, seemingly only in the area of their committee. So effectively only 7 councillors can request a call-in and then make the decision as to whether that call-in is made. So from 57 to 7. Under these new rules, requesting a call-in would not include people such as the Leader of the Opposition. It would not include councillors whose wards are affected by the decisions made in cabinets if they weren't on that specific committee. And it wouldn't be future-proof, because if there were to be other parties or independents who maybe didn't have enough representation across those 4 committees, they would not have chance to call in on, or request a call-in on every part of the council's work and activities from decisions made in cabinet. Therefore, I move this simple amendment to enable all councillors to be able to request a call-in as required.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In streamlining processes, it is important that democratic checks and balances are not compromised, and that all of us as councillors, each representing several thousands of our residents, should have a voice and be able to be heard. The work of the council's committees is important, but equally important is the right for those decisions to be scrutinised and, where necessary, to be called in. Giving all councillors the right to refer a decision for call-in to the relevant select committee is a strengthening of democratic process and gives any councillor in any part of the borough the opportunity to bring forward matters in requesting a call-in that may assist understanding and ultimately decision-making. Some of the best decisions are when we can truly come together to honestly examine issues of importance in the borough and be open to what scrutiny brings. Improvements in services happen when we look at the failings and weaknesses in things and study how to put them right. External scrutiny has not worked well and has called in only one matter for scrutiny in 17 years, I believe. This is hardly a record to be proud of. During the time that scrutiny has been part of the cabinet model of local government, we have avoided looking at many issues of local importance. The failure to provide adequate affordable housing and how best to increase it, the huge reduction in provision for young people, rogue landlords, the increasing number of SEND children in mainstream schools and lack of special school places for those who need them, the struggle mainstream schools have with getting EHC plans and the additional funding needed for those children. The growing poverty and increasing number of food banks in our borough are all matters we should be looking at and finding answers for, but we do not. We need a more open system where councillors can let select committees know what are issues of concern in their areas. They can be helpful in giving information for examination and scrutiny and should be allowed to ask for call-in if they consider this is needed. I hope that members will accept this amendment, although I'm sure you won't, and the opportunity it will give them to ask for a call-in of any decision made at a select committee that they would like to see re-examined and perhaps include more matters that will be helpful to the decision. Thank you.
bring Lloyd in for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the clarity of everybody watching in the room, and perhaps for our new councillor to help follow, we're now debating the amendment that is set out on page 3A and on page 4B of the Green Paper. That's what we're now debating.
Do we have any other speakers? Peter Curlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate the Leader of the Council is attempting to make scrutiny more effective, which is welcome. I speak in favour of this amendment, which is brought in an effort to assist the administration in their desire for a more effective system of scrutiny. The modernisation of local government over 20 years ago moved away from policy committees to a Leader and Cabinet system. This meant that decision-making became more efficient, and the Leader and Cabinet have a mandate to pursue the policy agenda that they were elected on. But all other councillors scrutinise those decisions. A strong administration can only truly be successful if it has a strong and efficient scrutiny system in place to support it, as well as hold the executive to account for their decisions. This is the basis of our local democracy. Regardless of our party allegiances, all elected members that are not in the Cabinet share the responsibility of scrutinising the executive. This is the checks and balances that go with the Leader and Cabinet system of governance. This amendment is simply to help full council ensure that all elected members that are not in the Cabinet have the constitutional right to carry out their civic duty as scrutineers of the executive. I would therefore urge full council to assist and enable the Leader of the Council to implement a more effective system of scrutiny that does not disenfranchise any member of whichever party to carry out their civic duty to scrutinise the executive. Each and every one of us can do this by voting in favour of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You got me back for not calling him Councillor Curlin. Any other speakers? No? Okay, we go back to Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The deletion of a small number of words reveals much about the difference in mindset between the Conservative administration and our Labour opposition. It is no surprise to this side of the chamber that Labour colleagues continue to favour talking rather than doing by seeking to put unnecessary obstacle in the way of the implementation of properly considered decisions. They clearly do not expect to be in power in the foreseeable future, and the Charleville by-election result would suggest those expectations are not misplaced. But more importantly, it says a lot about the dynamics of the opposition. Their support for this amendment would clearly show an inability or unwillingness to approach their own colleagues on a select committee to make the case to commence the call-in procedure. Or maybe they are so divided amongst themselves that they don't believe they would be listened to. Mr. Mayor, this is an unwelcome amendment that goes too far and would open the door to frivolous delay. It is not good governance, and it will not be supported by the Conservatives. Thank you.
Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not surprised this will be voted down by the administration, who cling on to control. They wish to reduce those who are able to scrutinise them, as their previous leader did, by reducing the way in which members' inquiries were managed, reducing the role of councillors to keep them quiet so that Cabinet can continue. And it's a dangerous move. Cabinet aren't making every decision poorly, but they should be accountable to those councillors around them when there is more need for information or a change of heart. However, having said this, we will support the original motion, as although we object to fewer councillors requesting a call-in, to have more select committees to call in and scrutinise the administrations rather than the current model is an attempt in the right direction to increase scrutiny. However, I fully hope that in order to get to a fully transparent scrutiny, where there isn't a clinging of control by the few, that there will be something that will come forward in constitutional changes that will improve the scrutiny of decisions made in this council for the better of all Hillingdon residents. I look forward to seeing that in the chamber.
We all come to the important moment, the vote. Those in favour of the amendment, please show by hands. Those voting against the amendment? The amendment is lost.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That amendment is lost, and we move back to debating the original motion as moved by Councillor Edwards, and I believe Councillor Bianco reserved his right.
Councillor Bianco. Councillor Edwards.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any other speakers? Sorry. No? We do have. Councillor Dillon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Agenda item 8, Appendix 3. We have a couple of clashes, so just before we vote, can we just make a note that we'll sort the clashes out in whips and with yourselves?
Sorry.
I'm on mute. We've got a couple of clashes on the programme of meetings, so before we settle this item.
We're not at the programme meetings yet.
I'll sit back down then.
So we go to the vote. Is the motion agreed? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation at Part 8.4 relates to changes to the Planning Committee. In the future, we will have less councillors to undertake the same workload. If we overburden the workload of councillors, we make the office of councillor less attractive, deterring new entrants and potentially skewing even further the representation on our council. We must therefore seek to reserve to councillors only key decisions and those relating to the most contentious or sensitive matters. For this reason, that I am proposing a reduction in the planning committees and increased delegation of decisions to make to officers. But having worked closely with Councillor Duncan, I know that she does not bring politics into planning matters and that her comments are worthy of careful consideration. Having done so, it is clear that her amendment clarifies detail and does not detract from the direction of travel set out in the report. There was no intention of diminishing the role of councillors in being able to secure referral to the committee. The change of wording makes more transparent our commitment to protecting the Green Belt, and the inclusion of consultations on applications submitted to neighbouring authorities will not materially impact the workload of planning committees and will give reassurance to residents. I am therefore willing to agree Councillor Duncan's amendments, and I move the recommendations so amended.
Is he seconded?
I formally second and reserve my right.
Any other speakers? Councillor Duncan.
Can I just thank, Mr. Mayor, can I just thank the leader for taking these on board? Yes, they were made not on a political basis, as you say, but solely to assist the work of all those involved in planning. So I thank you for that.
Is that amended a motion agreed? Thank you. Now move on to point 5. Councillor Edwards.
Mr. Mayor, I move the recommendation at 5 in the report, which is a simple amendment to the titles consequent to the replacement of the Scrutiny and Policy Overview Committees with Select Committees. And at 6 is the programme of meetings for 2021/2022 as amended, which I also move. And finally, and consistent with the theme of preparing for a change in the council size next year, I am recommended at point 7 a review of council appointments to outside bodies, and I so move the recommendations.
Is that? Do you have a seconder?
I so second all of those, and I reserve my right.
Thank you. Get ready. Is there any other speakers? You'd have to put your hand up first. Let's go for it. Councillor Dillon.
We can have some fun and games. I think I've said this before, but Appendix 3, there's some clashes, so is it okay if we resolve these outside of this meeting and
Mr. Mayor, that's fine. We'll liaise with both whips and clarify any clashes if that's to everyone's satisfaction.
So if there's no more speakers, is that agreed? 7, 9. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I formally move the committee allocations and membership for the council year 2021 to 2022 as per the attachment to the order of business.
Is that seconded?
I formally second this and reserve my right.
Any other speakers? No?
Sorry?
Sorry, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor Dillon, last chance? No? Any other speakers? No? Is that agreed? Thank you. We go on to agenda item 10. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to move the Policy Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report for 2020-2021. It has been an extraordinary year for us all in so many respects. However, the POCs, as we've known them, and as constituted until this evening, have carried out their work in what has been a condensed municipal year, ever resilient and adapting to new ways of working in very trying circumstances. Examples include corporate services review into the voluntary sector response to the pandemic, which, among other things, has given us a great deal of intelligence which will be applicable to partnership working in the future well beyond this current episode. We've seen recommendations adopted to improve the customer experience of people living with autism in accordance with legislation and best practice from social care, housing and public health POC. Meanwhile, the rest box work has included a review of littering and fly tipping, with recommendations which are augmenting the Council's approach to this area of service and has also helped spawn a vibrant, energetic volunteer effort from within the community, which is great to see. And of course, not forgetting external services, which has been playing a robust critical friend role with Hillingdon Hospitals Trust on performance improvement and of course site redevelopment. Mr. Mayor, I may be a recent addition to the body of members charged with this essential function, but I am by no means a late convert to the virtues of the POCs. As a member of the executive over the years, I've spoken many times of the value of their independence, digging into the detail as they do, distilling the essence of witness sessions and discussions into coherent recommendations for Cabinet. Mr. Mayor, there is no shying away from the word scrutiny. This is an essential part of the work of select committees moving forward in playing the critical friend role in accordance with the Good Scrutiny Guide and the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny. This helps strengthen Cabinet decision-making and the accountability of Cabinet and drive performance, standards and value for money. As we constituted select committees, let there be no doubt that our work is not peripheral in any way, shape or form. It is a central and indispensable part of what we do as a local authority in the name of the residents we represent. Finally, I would commend colleagues on both sides, as well as officers, witnesses and external partners, for their contributions to this endeavour over the course of the last year. I move.
Is this seconded? Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I offer my congratulations to you on your election as Mayor. I would like to second Councillor Cawthorne and in doing so acknowledge the contributions of members from both sides of this chamber. Despite the pandemic, members have come together in virtual committees throughout the year to monitor, scrutinise and suggest improvements that benefit all residents across our borough. I would also like to thank council officers for their assistance and of course the witnesses who give up valuable time to share their knowledge, experience and insight into the areas under review. Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to second this annual report to council.
Do we have any other speakers? If not, is this item report noted? We now move on to agenda item 11. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Any review of the past year and assessment of the borough has to comment on the COVID pandemic, how it has impacted our residents and continues to present a threat, how the council responded to support residents, and how the shared experience of the pandemic might change expectations moving forwards. In what I will be saying will be cold detail and terminology, But we must remember that behind every resident lost to the pandemic was a life lived and shared, a family losing a member, friendships broken, and hurt and suffering experienced by many. It is very sobering to know that 757 residents have lost their lives within 28 days of testing positive for COVID, and the full consequences of the pandemic have yet to play out. At the height, our infection rate per 100,000 residents was 952. Last week, it was 35.8. Today, it is 30.6. But it still remains one of the highest in London. The government reminds us that whilst the outlook is positive for ending soon all restrictions, the fight against coronavirus is not over, and the residents of Hillingdon will not be safe until everyone is safe and the threat of new variants is ended. Mr. Mayor, it will not have escaped your or members' attention that Hillingdon is included in the growing list of local authorities where variants of concern have been identified and enhanced control measures have been implemented. By the beginning of this week, there had been 2 confirmed cases of the South African variant in the borough, in Hayes and more recently in South Ruislip. Neither case has links to anyone who had travelled, so were deemed to be community transmission. Robust track and trace measures helped to stop further community transmission, and at the end of the surge testing in Hayes, no further case of the South African variant had been found. The surge testing in Ruislip ends this weekend, and to date, no further cases of the variant have been found. Complicating the situation in Ruislip was 35 confirmed COVID-19 cases at Queensmead School. Of these, 13 pupils were Hillingdon residents. And of particular concern is that 3 of the 35 cases have been confirmed by whole genome sequencing to be the Indian variant. 1 of the 3 is a Hillingdon resident. Given that Queensmead School is located adjacent to the geographic area in which surge testing for the South African variant is currently taking place, it was agreed with Public Health England to extend the surge testing arrangements to include Queensmead as well as other schools in the area. In the last week, cases of the Indian variant have increased significantly in London, and North West London boroughs account for half of the total number of such cases. Whereas in other areas there is evidence of further community transmission of this variant, this is not the case in Hillingdon. Our infection rate, even at sub-ward level, is not revealing any evidence of a community outbreak, and the borough's infection rate is on a downward trajectory from a small spike recorded at the beginning of the month. It is important to note that Hillingdon's infection rate includes all those COVID cases detected in our quarantine hotels. And as we have half of all the quarantine hotels in the country in our borough, it is no surprise that this is causing a significant skewing of the data with regard to the Indian variant of concern. We must be very cautious, though, as the results of genome testing, if carried out, are not known for a couple of weeks. We cannot therefore be certain that we have not got an emerging problem, and so we have plans prepared to immediately and significantly step up community testing and the vaccination programme in hotspot areas. We can expect this stepping up of activity within North West London very soon, but it is not yet clear to what extent that will be necessary in our borough. Our communications team are working hard to prepare community messages to inform and reassure our residents as the situation unfolds. Mr. Mayor, our residents can be assured that getting ahead of the COVID threat is our greatest priority, as it has been since the outbreak of the pandemic. Hillingdon was an early adopter of the devolved contact, track and trace. Previously, this was a highly centralised process with local authority involvement only where the central system had been unable to contact a person that had tested positive. Now we are informed immediately, and using our data sources and local knowledge, we have far better outcomes with contact completion rates clearly exceeding national, London and sub-regional levels. Our testing regime is and has been for many months the most comprehensive in London. By ensuring every neighbourhood has ready access to a testing site, we are able to better identify asymptomatic infections and limit transmission. We are also able to easily and quickly switch from lateral flow testing to the higher standard PCR testing in hotspot areas, with the infrastructure and staff readily available to do so. The third link in our defences has been the vaccination programme. Our NHS colleagues deserve our heartfelt thanks for their achievements. Whilst national data might show London to be lagging against some regions, this is more to do with the availability of vaccine than the capability to actually vaccinate or the willingness of our residents to be vaccinated. Much has been said about vaccine hesitancy, refusal rates, and differences noted between communities and neighbourhoods. The increasingly close working of council officers with NHS colleagues means that we've been effective in presenting the information needed by communities to make an informed choice about whether to be vaccinated. And we are seeing the fruits of this labour, with hesitancy slowly declining. Hillingdon now has the best vaccination uptake in West London across just about every category and age cohort. And I want to thank those colleagues that have helped get the message out by featuring in videos with messages spoken in different languages. It is probable that there will be an acceleration of the vaccination programme locally in the coming days, but in what manner and in which neighbourhoods is yet to be determined, and members and residents will be informed as soon as the situation becomes clear. We are prepared to accelerate place-based delivery of vaccines through community outreach, pop-up vaccination sites, multi-generational household delivery, and other targeted means to prevent transmission in high-risk areas if that is needed. Mr. Mayor, even though I have painted a slightly dark picture on our journey to a brighter future, we should be cautiously optimistic and need to prepare for a return to normality. Our support for business funded by government grants continues apace. To date, £75 million has been awarded to 4,000 individual businesses in the borough, and further payments will be made in the coming period. We are confident that we will have paid out all of the business support grant by the closing date, which should result in further funding being made available in due course. The Council has implemented a range of measures to help reopen our high streets and town centres, and has paid over £10 million in restart grants to businesses and business organisations. We have temporarily waived the licence fee for pavement tables and chairs to facilitate more outdoor socialising. A light touch has been taken on regulation and planning decisions for businesses adapting outdoor spaces for the resumption of trade. We are providing COVID marshals in our busier areas to reassure residents that social distancing measures required at the time are being observed and that those areas are safe to visit. Whilst the media and even I have talked about a return to normal, it would be more accurate to talk about a new normal, the exact shape of which is yet to be determined. The shared experience of the pandemic has clearly shown the vulnerability of people to the forces of nature, and it should be no surprise if in the future residents of all ages have more concern about our impact on the environment. Climate change and the environment will be front and centre. No longer will it be enough to just have a green strategy. It must be woven through everything we do, but not in a way that it becomes lost. We have made a good start with our climate change pledge and the development of an overarching strategy, but we must now step up a gear, fill in more detail, and develop our investment plans to deliver a greener future. The energy efficiency of our housing stock will be addressed. This will be a multi-year, multi-million-pound programme, and it is likely to result in the stepping up of our council housing regeneration, as it is likely not to be economically viable to bring all of our properties up to the future energy standards. We can and will move more quickly on further greening our borough. I want to see us re-establish our tree-lined avenues and roads, many of which have become quite sparse over the years. more trees will be planted in our parks and open spaces, not to offset carbon footprint, but because it's better for our environment, our air quality and general sense of well-being. The switch from fossil fuels to electric-driven vehicles has to be encouraged and supported by the availability of a good vehicle charging infrastructure. Battery technology is evolving rapidly, and we will be in a different place in 5 years' time than we are now. The need for on-street charging outside homes without front drives will change, maybe even evaporate, as battery range improves and charging times decrease. This means we must be cautious in approach, as the required investment will be high and might not be justified over a short payback period. However, we can and will do more to improve our charging points in our car parks, and we will again look at our policies to ensure they are appropriate for the future with respect to electric vehicles and parking. I'm sure that members will have noticed the increased number of residents jogging and cycling, making more use of our outdoor space for healthy activities. This needs to be sustained and expanded. Moving forwards, we shall be investing proportionately more in improving our pavements and walking routes, now that we have brought up the standard of our roads such that they are the envy of residents in neighbouring boroughs. Last year, our £6.5 million of investment in our roads and pavements secured the resurfacing of 12.1 miles of our roads and 15.6 miles of our pavements. This level of investment will continue. We will also be taking a fresh look at how we might make better use of our green corridors to provide safe routes for cyclists, rather than creating dedicated cycle routes on our already congested roads. But while some residents may have become fitter during the lockdown, COVID has shone a light on health inequality and the consequences to the wider community of the existence of those inequalities. We need to take a fresh look at our approach to public health and develop new methods to support and encourage our residents to lead more healthy and active lives. A more obvious change to the old normal has been the rapid move to online channels, whether for retail, business or social purposes. Just as local authorities ensured universal access to the printed world through the establishment of modern libraries, so there is a need to ensure universal access to the digital world through expansion of the mission of our libraries. The most commented on change arising from the lockdown has been working from home and its surprising success. This is most unlikely to be fully reversed, and that means that more resident time will be spent locally, with consequent growth in the demand for local services and businesses, which may mean the decline of our high streets is halted, possibly even reversed. Our planning approach should be to facilitate rather than regulate this evolution. I am concerned that I may be speaking for too long and have not yet mentioned the impact of the pandemic on our young people, their education, skills and employment, and the many other issues that we shall be appraising moving forwards. I shall do no more at this time than to leave a marker, as I want to use my last few minutes addressing the financial impact of the pandemic on the borough. I'm pleased to inform Council that the pandemic has not blown off course our sound financial management, and the outturn for the year ending April will be even better than had been forecast. The additional cost of the pandemic has been contained within existing budgets and government grants, and we are expected to confirm an underspend of £4.9 million and a closing general reserves of £32.8 million, both materially ahead of forecast. Furthermore, the £9.1 million of earmarked reserves for COVID have not been called upon, and we are cautiously optimistic that they will not be required for this purpose in the future. Unspent government grants of £6 million will be carried forward into this year, which further strengthens our financial position. But we are not naive to the fact that the bill for COVID has yet to be presented to the country, and we can foresee local authorities having to make contribution through future funding constraints. In anticipation, we must step up our drive for efficiencies, and we will be considering afresh the future shape of the council. My expectation is that it will require less office space, that with the opening of new access channels to residents who are confident in serving themselves through our website, we will require fewer staff to process and administer workflows. There will be more investment in automation of processes and robotics, cutting the number of steps between residents' request for service and its delivery. In due course, we shall look back over this period and undoubtedly see it as a period of loss, hurt and hardship. But I also believe that we shall see it as a turning point from which a slightly new course is set, and one that leads to a better outcome for this borough and its residents. One cannot but be encouraged by the way neighbours have supported each other through this period, how residents have stepped forward and volunteered to help charities, hospitals, vaccination centres and in many other ways. I'm similarly encouraged by the way the institutions and services have innovated, adapted and worked more closely together. We will be in a far stronger position for this, and residents should see service improvements as a consequence. I've also been impressed by the commitment and flexibility of our staff, who have implemented new ideas overnight, and through their endeavours they have shown that they clearly put our residents first as well. Our Chief Executive and Corporate Directors have excelled in their leadership, rolling up their sleeves and getting the job done. And members, all members, have come together in common purpose of supporting our residents and strengthening our borough in its fight against COVID. The last year has been a year of extreme challenge, but one of resilience, determination and achievement. I am mightily proud to be the leader of this fine council in a wonderful borough, and I salute you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before you call the meeting to a close, can I remind all members to remain in their seats so that we can go through the quick convening of the committees and appoint Chair and Vice Chairman. For our guests in the public gallery, obviously when the Mayor leaves, you're free to leave. We need to just do a little bit of further business with the councillors, so if you could leave quietly, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
I formally close the council meeting. Thank you.
So if members of the public wish to leave, they do so now. We'll just have a moment's pause while that happens.